What's going on, CDL fans, and welcome back to Champ Sunday with Jake Maverick. In this episode, we're going to be rating every single Major 1 Round 1 matchup in Madrid, which is going to be starting in just a couple days. I'm going to tell you my opinions of what I think LA Thieves' problems have been in the last couple of weeks. I'm also going to be doing the Ask Jake segment at the end of the video, and then have another announcement in case you didn't see. I'm going to be going through in the middle section of this video. And real quick, before we head into rating the matchups for Major 1, I do want to say, I know this is called Champ Sunday, and my goal is ultimately to try and post these on Sunday. But sometimes after a long watch party on Sundays, there's just not enough time or energy to record, edit, and upload this. So if it comes out on a Monday or Tuesday, I apologize. But just know you're generally going to get one every single week, at least while, we're in season. In the off season, it might be a little different. But let's get it started by talking about every single matchup at Major 1 in Madrid. Like I said, the Major starts this Thursday, so I'm uploading this on Tuesday. It starts in 2 days, and I will be watch partying every single day here on the channel. It's going to be starting at like 10 a.m. Eastern, I believe is the time for Thursday and Sunday. And then Friday and Saturday, I think, are like 8 a.m. Eastern. So it's going to be early for us here in NA, but it's really not that bad. Most of us are probably awake going to work or school at that time anyway. So ultimately, I don't really care too much about it being early. I actually think it might be a cool change of pace to watch COD in the morning into the afternoon. But we're going to be ranking every single matchup 1 through 10 for Major 1. So we obviously know our winners round 1 matchups. And then we're also going to be ranking the potential losers round 1 matchups, given if, depending on who loses in the first round. So there's a bunch of different series to go through and kind of talk about which ones I think are going to be the best, which ones I think wouldn't be as entertaining to see in round 1 in Madrid this week. So we're going to start from the top down. We're going to work our way down the bracket here. We're going to start with OPTIC versus the Miami Heretics, a one that I feel like we always see, right? This is one of the classics when it comes to the CDL COD esports, right? In this era, OPTIC versus Miami, OPTIC versus Florida has been one of those bangers I feel like we always see. And for me, I give this one a 7 out of 10. I think it could be good. I think OPTIC should undoubtedly win this, but obviously, the fan base in Spain might be rallying behind the Heretics. But of course, the Green Wall rides hard, and I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of them out there in Spain as well. So I think the fan bases will make this one pretty entertaining, and this one's always a good one, but, I still give it a 7, though, because I think OPTIC should be able to get done with Miami pretty handily. We go to the next winners round 1 matchup, and this is the Carolina Royal Ravens versus the LA Thieves. And for me, honestly, this one is a 9. I think this is two teams that have been top 3 multiple times this season, undoubtedly, top 4, top 5, almost the entirety of the year so far, but both of them have been struggling a bit recently, and have shown flaws in their game, especially in hardpoint for both of these teams. Both of these teams have not been great in hardpoint, even though they started the year as being probably the 2 best hardpoint teams. So for me, this is one of those, obviously this is my team playing right in the LA Thieves, but I think this is one of those matchups where I don't really know what's going to happen because both teams have been struggling, but have also shown a ton of promise earlier on in the year. So I think on land, this one's going to be really good. I expect LAT to be better on land. Ravens is a team that's going to be interesting. And I give this one a 9 out of 10. Then we go down to the Toronto Ultra versus the Vancouver Surge. I give this one a 5. It's kind of okay. Seeing Toronto play, technically they're the ones hosting the Major. So maybe they'll have some fans in Madrid. I don't really know who the Madrid fans are going to root for. If it's going to be the Heretics, it's going to be the Ultra. But Surge is the team that, despite being 4-3 in the qualifiers, which is pretty typical, right? A lot of their wins, I feel like, come in Game 5, Round 11s, them just kind of icing up in the last moment. So, of course, the ice is super important and is fun to watch, but versus this Ultra team, right? Kleenex and Insight, guys who have won every single year they've been in the league. Beans and Joe Deceives, guys who've been pretty quality players. This is a team I would imagine Ultra should be able to take down the Surge. So, 5 out of 10 for me on this one. And then we go to the last winners round 1 matchup before we drop into losers. And this is the Boston Breach versus Atlanta FaZe. And I give this one a 7 out of 10. I wanted to go higher, but we just saw these guys play last weekend, and FaZe 3-0'd Boston. It wasn't particularly close. So if Boston, plays how they played against LAT, this one could be better, but FaZe is also definitely in better form than LA Thieves, hence why FaZe got done with them in a 3-0 fashion earlier this past weekend. So I think this one has potential, but Boston's also a team that, I don't know what they're going to do on land. They're one of the teams I'm most excited to watch on land because it's are they going to be as good as they are online? Are they just onliners? I guess we don't really know. But we know FaZe is always good on land, right? Up until Sundays is always the joke, right? So I think they're going to be fine. I think FaZe should be able to take this one, but I still give it a 7 out of 10 because Boston's definitely probably the dark horse of the event. All right, now let's drop into losers, and we're going to do all the potential matchups for each round. So LAG is the first one here. They could play potentially Miami or OPTIC, so we're going to obviously do both of those. So starting it out with the Gorilla Mates versus Heretics matchup, and this one I'm giving a 10 out of 10. Now hear me out, because people are probably like, oh, this is Burger Bowl, right? Who really cares about these teams? And you're right to an extent. Number one, I mean, on the Burger Bowl side of things, these are two teams that probably are looked at as some of the bottom teams in the league. So when the bottom teams play each other, it's oftentimes kind of close, which is pretty entertaining. On land, maybe it's different. But the real reason I'm giving this a 10 out of 10 is I think this is going to be an absolute clash of fan bases, right? Obviously, Miami being a Spanish team, Spanish organization with Spanish players, but imagine the crowd in Madrid is going to cheer for them. But also Genomates, with Linz on the team, obviously, Genomates being a French organization. I heard Gotaga said on stream they had like 400 confirmed Genomates fans that are going to be going out to Madrid. This was a couple weeks ago, so it might be even more, with hundreds of Genomates fans in the crowd and hundreds, if not thousands, of Spanish fans in the crowd. I would imagine it's going to be a pretty loud venue for this event. Not to mention the Genomates have had the most viewed matches of the entire qualifiers. I think the top 5 matches, 4 of those were when Genomates were playing so far in Major 1 quals. So I think this is going to be an absolute battle of fan bases. I think this is going to be sick for people in the venue and also watching at home. I'm just expecting to be able to feel the energy during this matchup. So Heretics versus LAG might be a Burger Bowl, but I'm actually giving this a 10 out of 10 because I think the fan bases are going to make it super entertaining. The flip side of this would be OPTIC versus Genomates, which is probably unlikely. I give this one a 5 out of 10. Again, I think the fan bases would be pretty interesting here, right, with the Green Wall versus the Genomates fans, but I just think OPTIC are one of the best, easily the top 2, right? I think them and FAZE are the top 2 teams, undoubtedly, in my opinion. So I don't see this being particularly close. Then we go down to the Vegas Falcons matchup for the bracket here. They either are going to pull Ravens or LA Thieves, which is not good for the Falcons, right? If anything, you probably wanted to pull literally anybody else or any of the other 3 matchups. Ravens versus Falcons, I give a 3. I just think the Ravens should be able to take down the Falcons. And then LAT versus Falcons, I give a 2 out of 10. I give these both like a 3 and a 2 because I guess watching the Falcons play on land is potentially interesting, right? Because it's their first year of the CDL, but I don't see them winning either of these matchups no matter who they get, so not high ratings for me. Now we go to the Minnesota Rocker matchup. They're going to pull either the Toronto Ultra or the Vancouver Surge, and I actually think this is probably the best matchups we're going to see in losers round 1. For the Toronto Ultra, I give this one an 8 out of 10. We've seen these teams match up in the minor, and then in the following week in the qualifiers, Rocker took it in the minor, Ultra took it in the quals. They feel like they match up pretty well. I would imagine Ultra are the favorites in this one, right? But Rocker play close to just about everyone they play, right? They push a lot of game 5s. Even though their hardpoint, I feel like they don't have the best hardpoint record, they're able to keep maps close. Their SND is pretty good. Their control is solid. They're a team you can't count out. Another one of the dark horse teams, I'd say, in Madrid. And I think them versus Ultra could be an interesting matchup to see for the 3rd time this season already. So for them, that's an 8 out of 10. And then versus this Vancouver Surge, I give this one a 9 out of 10. We just saw these teams play this past weekend. It went game 5, round 11. This was possibly the closest series. I think definitely the closest series of the year so far. Every single map was close. The biggest win was like a 23-point win in the Map 4 hardpoint. Absolutely banger series. Two round 11s, round 5 into control, 250 to 230, 240 in both hardpoints. Absolute bangers. So this one, I think, on land would be super interesting, especially because Surge and Rocker, both are teams I'm interested to see how they play on land because they've both been kind of hit or miss online, although they're able to keep some of their series close. So this one's honestly a 9 out of 10 for me. And then we get into our last matchups for losers round 1. This is going to be for Cloud9. It's either going to be the Boston Breach or Atlanta FaZe. For Breach, I give it a 7 out of 10. I think this one could be a close matchup if, Cloud9 gets maybe a little bit of a land buff, right? Maybe like Attach and Sib will just play better on land than they have been online. But I feel like I don't see Cloud9 winning either of these matchups, no matter who they pull. And then for Atlanta FaZe, I give it a 4 out of 10. It would probably be even lower, but they did push it game 5 versus them this past weekend when they played. So, like I said, if Attach and Sib are a little bit better on land, maybe this is a bit more interesting, but I don't really see Cloud9 getting past either of these teams, no matter who they pull in losers round 1. But now that we've ranked every single matchup at Madrid, and let me know in the comments, what are you most excited, whether it's winners round 1 or potential losers matchup, who are you most excited to see play? I want to talk real quickly about 2 announcements I made this past weekend before we talk about my thoughts on the LA Thieves struggles recently. In case you missed it, if you haven't tuned into the watch parties, I actually announced my first ever 2 partnerships in the same weekend, which is pretty crazy. I partnered with Agent Picks, which is a CDL fantasy betting website, kind of like Prize Picks or Underdog, and Juvie. If you guys don't know what Juvie is, it is an energy drink. It was started by NADESHOT and 100 Thieves. They sold it to Sprecher Brewery, which is a brewery out of Wisconsin. But Juvie is something, I mean, I have them right there, that I have been drinking since it started. Absolutely my favorite energy drink by far. To be able to work with them was literally my dream brand. So both of these I couldn't have done without you guys. So first of all, thank you for the support on these videos, on the streams, on every video, on the TikToks, on the Twitter. Quite literally, without you guys, I wouldn't have these opportunities. So major thank you. You can use code MAV on both of these, right? This is my shameless plug. I mean, it's my video, so I guess I could plug myself if I want, right? But you can use code MAV, M-A-V, all caps, on either of these sites. On Juvie, you'll get 10% off every order. And then on Agent Picks, you'll get up to a $100 deposit match if you're a first-time user, and a 3% earnings boost. So anytime you win, you'll get a 3% boost on that just for using my code. So if you want to support me and the channel, use the codes on these sites. And also to let them know, like, they didn't make a mistake working with me, showing that I'm someone that's good to work with would also be super helpful. So again, thank you guys seriously for the continuous support. 2025 are only almost a month in, which is crazy, but already been a banger so far to this year. So thank you guys. But now let's talk about LA Thieves. It's obvious LAT has been struggling recently ever since the winter break, right? They lost to Atlanta FaZe in the minor. They lost to OPTIC Texas in an absolute heartbreaking 5-1 comeback out of OPTIC in Game 5. And then they beat the Miami Heretics, and then they lost to the Boston Breach. So they're 1-3 since the winter break. And of course, from going 4-0 to start before winter break to 1-3, not exactly what you want to see, especially out of the, community dubbed super team, right? Which I still think, seen people arguing this on Twitter. Are they a super team? Are they not a super team? I still think that's a fair, you know what I mean? Just because they're losing, it doesn't mean they're not a super team, right? Like, they have Hydra and Scrap, who are 2 of the top 3 players of the last couple years. They have Ghost, who was a top 10 player last year, and they have Envoy, who has been a top 20 player year in, year out, who is one of the winningest players in the CDL era. I think they're undoubtedly a super team, and that's just not me saying that. Like, even as a fan of the team, bro, I'd rather us not be called a super team, right? Because then the expectations and the community pressure is less. But I think they're a super team, just like OPTIC, just like FaZe, pretty much undoubtedly. But why is LAT struggling, right? And this is, of course, simply my opinion as a fan, just from what I've seen watching. I don't have any inside info. I'm not, like, talking to the players in the practice, things like that. So I can only go off of what I'm seeing in game. So I could be wrong. You could disagree, and all that is totally fine. But I think there's a couple of key things for me that are sort of what's going wrong for the team so far in their matches. Number one, and this is talking primarily about the series versus the Boston Breach, and especially that Game 5 Hacienda SND, where they lost 6-3. I believe they lost 6-3 in both SNDs. But specifically the Game 5 Hasi, I feel like the Thieves, for one, are playing not confident enough, right? At the end of the day, you have some of the best players in the game all on the same team, right? Hydra and Scrap, some of the best gunny we've seen in COD history, let alone in the CDL era, right? These are some of the most individually talented players we've seen in a very, very long time. And they're on the same team, and I feel like they were absolutely not confident versus this Boston Breach team. Like I said, in the Game 5, they gave Boston complete map control to do whatever they want. There were multiple rounds where Snoopy and Purge just duo hit through top mid and cleared out the entirety of the top mid of the map, which gives you all the map control, all the information you need to sort of trap LAT into whatever site Awakening or Cammy might be getting info on. So I think they were just not playing confident. They were not challenging these guys, and they were just kind of letting Boston do whatever they want. And we've seen this in almost every series since the break, where I just feel like sometimes they ego chow too much, I think, which is the thing, right? We saw this before the break, where like they started blowing leads because they were ego chowing too much. But now they're not ego chowing at all, which I think is part of something you need to do as a top team. Is like, sometimes you just got to heat check. Sometimes you just got to chow. The key is you just got to do it together, which is my second point for this team. Is sometimes the teamwork and chowing things together just isn't there. You'll just see guys like get caught out running by themselves or trying to do something by themselves, and they're not playing together. And especially in Black Ops 6, the best teams are the ones where the SMG duos are playing together. You got Snoopy and Purge, you got Estrel and Nero, you got Shotzi and Hook, you got Simp and Abeezy, right? These are all teams where the SMG duos do everything together. They're absolutely holding hands around the map, and they're finding success. And I feel like Hydra and Envoy are just not doing it. Sometimes you'll see like Hydra and Scrap, or Scrap and Envoy, or a Ghosty and Envoy, but you never really see the SMGs together, which I think is a big problem for BO6 and what we're seeing is the most successful playstyle for a team so far in the game. So those are the two like really big things. I think they just got to play more confident, and I think they got to chow together, right? I think if you do those two things, you're pretty much going to beat everybody. Maybe versus Optic and FaZe is a bit different, but versus literally anyone else in the league, if this team with the talent they have just plays together and plays confident, I don't see them losing to anybody other than the potential other two top teams. And then the other thing, I feel like in the listen-ins, there's just not like any energy. Like when you listen to the listen-ins, I feel like they generally have good comms, right? They're calm, they're calling the right things out. I feel like the small talk is pretty good. Like they're kind of saying like, you know, I'm watching this, or make sure we pick up this, or they're spawning out here, or let's push up now to, you know, flip spawns, things like that. Like I feel like the actual like in-game things they're talking about are fine, at least from what I'm listening in. Could it be better? Sure, but I think generally it's pretty good. I just feel like there's no energy. Like they just sound so monotone, so like too calm for a team. You want to kind of get some energy, get some hype, right? We saw what Pred brought to Optics comms last year, like bringing that hype, getting the best out of Shotzzy is super important. When teams are frying and getting energetic, I can't talk anymore, getting energetic and bringing the hype up, it just helps you play more confident and play with that more energy, which just leads to overall better results. So I would personally love to see the guys have more energy, and maybe on land it'll be different, right? Feeding off the crowd energy will hopefully help them, especially for Scrap is someone I feel like who gets, you know, loud on stage. We've seen Ghosty do it. We've even seen Hydra do it a little bit. Envoy, not as much, but like occasionally. So hopefully on land it changes, but I really want to see these guys like feel the energy and, you know, hear it in the comms when we go to listen-ins. And I think lastly, and this could potentially be like the biggest one, I think ultimately for me, the biggest one is just teamwork, right? Like just playing together. And also, I do want to preface, right? This is a new team. They made a 3-man roster change, right? I know like Scrap and Envoy played together last year, but kind of a 2.5-man roster change, right? For this team. They're a new team. They need time to gel. Optic last year started 4-3 in Major 1 quals. I think they got like third, right? Third or fourth in Major 1. They just need time to gel, right? Like I mentioned Optic because they ended up being the best team and winning champs at the end of the year. The team does just need time to gel, get comfortable in their play styles, work on their game plan and how they want to play COD. So I'm not really like worrying to rush or fix things for these guys. But I will say one of the bigger, more tactical things I think they're finding the problem is Hydra and Envoy kind of play similarly at times, where like they both want to sort of maybe take a route, be a little bit ratty, where in COD generally, but also in BO6, it's a bit more of like putting pace on the map and keeping the pressure on your opponent, where your SMG duo is playing together and trading each other, but you also have your ARs behind you. In Scrap and Ghost You, I think fit this perfectly, where like they're also helping you deal damage and get these trades and win the trade battles around the map, which is just gives you map control, gives you control of the hill so you can soak time, or gives you control of a bomb site or a control zone. You know what I'm saying, right? Like having map control, map pressure is super important in every COD, but especially in BO6. And I just think with the way Hydra and Envoy are playing, they both kind of get caught sort of trying to take a route, or like playing maybe a little bit ratty, where like at points they'll just like sit in a corner for a few seconds to sort of see if someone will run by them and they could pop a 2-piece or something, or get some intel, which is helpful. But when there's no pressure being put on the SMG duo of the other team, they're just destroying you. You know what I mean? They're just getting you right back because you're not really shooting them because they're already past you. They're killing your ARs. Like, you need to sort of, someone needs to go in first, bro. Like, someone just needs to entry and the other guy needs to trade. Taking a route, playing ratty at times can be helpful. But clearly, when you look at the other duos, like I mentioned earlier, that's just the better way to play in this game, is just hold hands, play together, occasionally take a route, but like just fight the other team, bro. Like just go for trades. Because when LAT play together, and we saw this a lot on Rewind, so I don't know why. Like I know Rewind was probably their best hardpoint maps, but you feel like it should be transferable across maps no matter what. Like they would win every trade battle on Rewind. Like they always came out on top of the trades because they were just playing together and pushing together. So they just got to get back into that, I think, for every other map in hardpoint. I think they're going to be fine. But ultimately, to sum it all up, I'm not worried about the thieves. People are like, drop Envoy for Pred, drop Ghosty. Like, I've seen people saying, drop this, drop that. Hydra's bad at the game. you know, Scrap's not as good as people think. Like, I've seen every storyline and comment on Twitter. It's literally Major 1 qualifiers. They haven't played on land, right? You might be watching this after Major 1. So I don't know what happened at Major 1. So please don't comment, oh, look what happened. They got top 8 if they end up getting top 8 for some reason. Like, I can't predict the future in that case, but like, they're going to be fine. They got some of the best talent in the league. You got proven winners on this team. They just need some time to gel. Now, if this is post-Major 2 and they're still ass or like playing not good COD, that's a different story. But after Major 1, just online, I think it's going to be fine. Give the boys time. They'll be all right. But now it's time to end the video off with the Ask Jake segment. As always, at the end of these videos, I take questions in the comments of the previous video and answer them in this one. So if you have any questions for me to answer next week, they could be about Major 1 potentially, because next episode will be post-Major 1, so we'll know who wins, who played well, who played bad. So maybe if you have any questions regarding that, could be a good one to just get some conversation started. But we only got one question today, so drop the questions down below so I have some more to answer, please, in the next episode. But my one question comes from Sparta Gamer, and he asks, what is your 3 most underrated roster moves in COD history? Some of the moves that go under the radar. The ones that I came up with might not be like the most underrated. It's just the 3 I thought of off the top of my head. I'm sure there's other ones if I really like dove in and like really tried to remember what's happened in COD history. I could have found some better ones. But these are the 3 I came up with. And these are in no order. So the first one I thought of, this was instantly what came to my mind, was enable to OPTIC in Advanced Warfare. I feel like the AW COD team for OPTIC, you think of when NADESHOT was on the team, right? And then you obviously think of when NADESHOT retires. And then Karma comes in, and that's like the start of the dynasty. But people don't talk about Enable coming on this team. He came on the team for like literally 2 events, and they won both, ESWC and Gfinity Spring Masters, right? But with NADESHOT, they were winning, and then with Karma, they were winning. But people forget about that little time in between where Enable was just sort of filling in for Karma, and they still were winning. So maybe it's just a testament to how good SCUMP, Crim, and Formal were. But Enable came onto this team, and they were able to continue being successful. Which I think is just something people don't really talk about, right? Enable's one of those guys who didn't get a ring, so maybe people just kind of forget some of the things he did in COD, but I like to give that nub some of the credit, so shout out to him and that OPTIC team in AW for getting those wins post-NADESHOT, pre-Karma. Another one, and this one's like a bit of a stretch, you know what I mean? But you're going to see what I mean when I say it, was actually Draza to OGLA in 2019. And the reason I say this one is because, I'm going to be honest, I hadn't even heard of Draza before he signed with OGLA. I know he was pretty good in Challengers, especially when you go back to his wiki page and see some of his results in Challengers, but I hadn't heard of Draz. He signs with OGLA, gets his chance in the league, and obviously that leads to him being on LA Thieves in Cold War, and then obviously being on LA Thieves in Vanguard where he gets a ring, and now being on FAZE, right? So he goes from, you know, getting a chance on this kind of crappy OGLA team, and then ending up on a really crappy Cold War LA Thieves team, to then winning a world championship and now being on one of the top 2, top 3 teams every single year, or the years he's been on FAZE so far. So I think Draj just getting that opportunity on OGLA is something we don't think about, because nowadays he's sort of like a staple as one of the top guys, or a guy who's being on top teams. So shout out to OGLA for giving my guy Draj a chance, because he of course wins my boys the ring, which is just great. And then the last one that I got here on the list is not even a specific roster change. It is a full change. So this is the Seattle Surge fully squad wiping after Cold War going into Vanguard. Obviously, 2019 Surge were ass. Cold War Surge were ass, right? Occasionally, maybe they got an 8th or like 1/5 through 6th. But with Octane Gunless, Pristini, and Classic being that roster at the end of Cold War, completely wiping those guys, right? And then bringing in Accuracy, Mac, Pred, and Sib, instantly turned around that franchise, right? They won Major 3 the following year in Vanguard. Pred and Sib were 2 of the best rookies. Pred, of course, was the best rookie. Sib was probably the second best in that year. Like, what they were able to change from being pretty much one of the worst organizations in the first 2 years of the CDL to instantly being like a contender that got back-to-back top 3s at champs, I think is actually pretty insane that no one really talked about, and kind of just like made Surge a bit more of a respectable franchise than they were, because they were on like the same level as like the Ravens, you know what I mean? And the Legion is just, and the Gorillas, where it's just kind of like, these guys are ass. But now, obviously, they're a bit more respectable. They were better in previous years than maybe they are so far this year. But I think that squad wipe from Cold War to Vanguard is something that people don't talk about. But yeah, man, that's going to do it for this episode of Champs Sunday with myself, Jake Maverick. I'm excited to watch Major 1. Like I said, I'm going to be live watch partying early mornings into the afternoon until matches end Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So hopefully I'll see some of you guys there. The watch parties have been insane. I mean, we've been averaging well over 100 viewers, which is pretty much a first for me for CDL matches. So it's been awesome. Like I said, shout out to Juvie, shout out to Agent Picks for working with me. I can't wait to do more Agent Picks on the channel and on the streams. And then obviously, I mean, I drink Juvie every day. So if you've never tried it or you do drink it, try out Code MAV, get 10% off, and just help support me and the channel. So I appreciate you guys, man. Thank you for all the love and support so far in 2025. And hopefully I'll see you all in the next video.